and we're going to get down to it really, really soon. Furious note-taking as we open up. The teams that we are going to see, Dan's over there. It's going to be Charizard, Butterfree, Torkoal, Mudsdale, Oranguru, Duraludon, with Kareem bringing a team of Rotom, the Wash format, Indeedee, Excadrill, Reuniclus, Arcanine, and Snorlax.
There's a lot of cool synergies on these teams here. Obviously on Dan's team we have the Charizard and Torkoal. Torkoal with that Drought ability will be able to boost those Fire-type attacks for Charizard. We have Oranguru with Mudsdale, Oranguru likely carrying that Trick Room. It'll reverse the speeds and make Mudsdale very, very fast. Butterfree is a very good support Pokemon in this format with access to moves like Rage Powder, which can protect its teammates, and Sleep Powder, which can, you know, make some... we saw the power of Sleep in that first round with Ragavzia and Togekiss, so Butterfree with that Sleep Powder doesn't have that delay turn, it can put something to sleep immediately. But over on Kareem's team, we have the Indeedee and Reuniclus combo. So Indeedee has the Psychic Surge ability, which will set Psychic Drain and boost the Psychic-type attacks from Reuniclus, which can also set Trick Room for the Snorlax. We also have Excadrill without Tyranitar, which is somewhat less common, but Excadrill does have another fantastic ability in Mold Breaker. And so not necessarily reliant on that sand, a very strong Pokemon in its own right.
Yeah, and I think there's some really cool additions on both teams. I mean, I think Reuniclus and Oranguru, not the highest usage across tournaments.
Right.
Definitely moving up there. I mean, Oranguru's been taking names over in the trading card game with its style of play there, but it's always been an issue. It's got access to some really cool moves, Instruct being pretty much the focal point. And we're looking at it, both teams want to be using Trick Room, so it's going to be a case of who can take advantage of it as soon as possible. Yeah,
both teams, you know, like to take advantage of Trick Room, but also have some Pokemon that don't necessarily need it. You know, Charizard is one of the fastest Pokemon in the format right now. We actually are seeing it right on the screen immediately, so looks like Dan isn't opting for that Trick Room setup right now, but Kareem might be with that Reuniclus.
And this Charizard Butterfree, it's the ultimate first generation kind of lead that you've got. You've picked up your Charmander at the start, you've gone to the forest and picked up the Butterfree. You're ready to go, I'm ready to beat everyone. Dan taking that one on the chin really well there. I mean, I think this is an interesting lead from the trainers. See who can carve out the advantage.
Right, you know, this Butterfree is threatening a Sleep Powder because it will be faster than the Reuniclus, absolutely. But Reuniclus can sometimes carry the ability Overcoat. And if it is, it will actually just ignore that Sleep Powder entirely. So it remains to be seen what ability it is running, but that is an option for Kareem here.
Yeah, we'll see exactly how this one starts to shape out, really. The opening turn's pretty important when you're running a Trick Room team and you're dedicated to that Trick Room as well. I think both trainers, nobody wants to make that mistake. Nobody wants to open up and see kind of an error come through. Butterfree's going to be leaving the field. Doesn't want to deal with the potential attack from Arcanine and Torkoal coming in instead. So maybe looking to take advantage right there of something. You know, if the Trick Room is going up, get your Trick Room setter in as well. We do see the Drought ability. So more attacks going to be doing a whole lot more damage.
Immediate Dynamax as well.
You love to see it, don't you? Just no holds barred. Throw out your Pokemon, make it huge, and do as much damage as possible. It's going to be a Dynamax on the Charizard from Dan's side of the field. Going to be really in a good position to deal some damage with that Sun coming into play as well. We'll see how he decides to maneuver around this one.
Oh, another one.
There is going to be a Dynamax in response, though, from Kareem.
Yeah, Kareem and likely going to be this Arcanine, because Arcanine is a very strong offensive option against this team. I was actually going to be that Reuniclus, though. That's interesting. Opting not for the Trick Room on this first turn.
Yeah, it's there to probably be able to take more damage. Just look at that health bar.
That's so high.
430 is such a nutty number to try and deal with. You know, Charizard's Max Flare in the Sun is going to hurt, though.
Absolutely. You know, this Max Flare is boosted by the Sun and that Solar Power ability, but because Reuniclus did Dynamax, it was able to hang on this turn. Yeah,
that's a real smart Dynamaxing. Arcanine throwing up Safeguard there, wants to keep itself safe, and it responds with a Max Mind Storm into the Torkoal.
Wow.
Just takes it right out.
A very smart play from Kareem there, you know, knowing that Dan was likely going to Dynamax that Charizard, even possibly set up the Sun with that Torkoal. You know, he did Dynamax his Reuniclus, double that HP stat, so he could survive that Max Flare. The Safeguard prevented a possible Sleep Powder from that Butterfree, and then Max Mindstorm opting, likely just trying to break that Focus Sash on the Butterfree. That's a very common item on Butterfree, but instead catching the Torkoal switch and just removing it from the game on turn 1.
That's a really cool adaptation from Kareem, I think. I don't think many people expected him to do that. ADrive himself probably looking for the Trick Room, gonna take advantage of that, but he's played it so well, he's thrown out an immediate attack there. And now this Butterfree, while Safeguard's up, really gonna struggle, I think, to come in and do much on this game.
Right, you know, with that Safeguard up, it won't be able to Sleep Powder. You know, it can still effectively use the Rage Powder. It will divert attacks from its partner to itself. But instead, Dan opting to bring in this Duraludon, which has a pretty good matchup against Reuniclus. A little more so-so against Arcanine, though.
Yeah, well, Max Airstream landing onto the Arcanine.
Wow.
Arcanine can't take it. It's not going to be able to handle that. And this Charizard boosting its speed. Obviously, if Trick Room's not going to be in play, you want to be quicker.
Right.
Duraludon's going to get the speed boost as well. Arcanine removed from the field. Rudicrus is pretty slow. It's not going to be given much time left as it's knocked out by the Flash Cannon from Duraludon.
That's a huge turn from Dan. You know, obviously not the greatest first turn from him. He did lose that Torkoal, and he did have the safeguard set up. But with that Max Airstream packing a huge punch thanks to the Solar Power boost and that Life Orb, able to knock out the Arcanine. And the Duraludon was able to finish off that Reuniclus after the huge Max Flare on turn 1. So a good call from Dan bringing in that Duraludon to threaten some more offense. And now Kareem's Trick Room option is gone. And we do see this Snorlax on the field, which, you know, is one of the Pokemon that likes Trick Room the most, but now no longer can use it.
Well, it's going to be a combination of Rotom Wash and Snorlax together. Obviously, Snorlax usually wanting Trick Room in play.
Right.
And right now, this Charizard's in a good type attack any better. That's going to help out a little bit and potentially as well, you know, help something like Duraludon take them. Charizard does have to worry, of course, about something like the Thunderbolt coming through, doing huge damage that way. But right now, this Charizard's in position to just start attacking whatever it wants. I think once you get rid of something like that Rotom, you're going to be feeling pretty good about yourself, and that's very doable now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rotom keeping it safe, going to protect right away. Doesn't want to get hit with any big attacks immediately. Max Flare, though, real good targeting, I think, from Dan. Knows about the protect. And Snorlax is brought down to an absolute pittance of health. It is enough, though, to hold on and eat its a Guave Berry, a good amount there, as Duraludon reveals Solar Beam in the sun. Doesn't need the turn for any kind of charging and lands it into the protect of Rotom. Snorlax cannot belly drum. It does not have enough health.
Right. That's a big turn for Dan again. You know, Kareem protecting that Rotom, probably not wanting to take something like a Max Overgrowth from Charizard, which very often does carry that move. But instead we saw the Solar Beam from Duraludon, and the Charizard just wiping out the Snorlax's HP with that Max Flare. You know, taking advantage of the sun and that last turn of Dynamax. You know, Snorlax often does not carry Protect, and so Dan possibly thinking, you know, if Kareem wants to stall out that last turn of Dynamax by protecting the Rotom, he can take advantage of that with that Max Flare into Snorlax and deny that Belly Drum as well.
Well, this Snorlax really didn't get what it wanted in that turn, I think. Not being able to belly drum is a problem. And this solar power is going to be available in the harsh sunlight. Of course, that Duraludon's also got that speed boost as well from the earlier Max Airstream. Max Airstream, it might be one of my favorite Max moves.
It's one of the best, for sure.
Because it provides kind of a pseudo tailwind.
Right.
And it also just does a huge amount of damage.
Well, especially on something like Charizard that's very fast. You know, it's very similar to something like a Prankster Tailwind in that it gets that speed boost immediately.
Yeah, well, speaking of Solar Beams, Duraludon's not the only one carrying it. Charizard also there. Rotom could cause a problem for Charizard without this kind of coverage right there. Rotom brought all the way down. No issues there in knocking it out. It's one weakness exploited a little bit. Charizard's health going down as Duraludon follows up with a Solar Beam, probably looking to double target the Rotom.
Right, just in case.
Just to make sure if it clings on, it was going to be there, but it's going to land onto Snorlax, and Snorlax probably struggling to take this game on its own. It's got 3 Pokemon to deal with. Yeah,
you know, Snorlax is a very good Pokemon. In years past, we have seen it, you know, win these 1v3s, but not right now. It looks like this Charizard and Duraludon will be able to finish it off in time. You know, thanks to some very strong offense by Dan, you know, backed up by that Sun from the Torkoal. Even though the Torkoal did get knocked out as soon as it came on the field, but the Sun has been such a huge factor in this game that I don't really think that's a bad thing if you're Dan.
The Sun's been pretty much exactly what he wanted. He's been able to Solar Beam when he needed to. His Max Flares have done huge amounts of damage. So he's really put himself in a great position. And even if, I think if Trick Room goes up, he probably feels fine. He just brings Duraludon and does things with that.
Right.
So the last turn, of course, of the Sun and the Psychic Terrain, they were set up literally back in turn 1 of the game with that double Dynamax. And there's only so much Snorlax can do. It's going to have to, I guess, keep recycling and let Charizard get knocked out by its damage it's doing to itself. Right. And then hope Duraludon doesn't attack it too much. And Butterfree doesn't hurt it either. So
that's an interesting point that the Charizard actually hasn't taken an attack this entire game.
That's all damage done to itself.
Based on the Life Orb and the Solar Power,
Well, Air Slash is going to be the choice. Trying to give Snorlax limited options, and it knocks it out. So that's a huge amount of damage from Air Slash.
Yeah, it's just for reference, Snorlax is one of the bulkiest Pokemon we have in the game, and that Air Slash, you know, not the strongest attack. Solar Beam is much stronger, though we've seen, you know, even Flash Cannon from the Duraludon's a little bit stronger. But that Air Slash knocked out the Snorlax, you know, from, you know, decent chunk of health, and that just kind of goes to show just how strong Charizard can be.
I mean, it's got an ability that literally says you can do more damage. When you throw that on with the life orb that we saw, that really starts to add up. Of course, you are taking a good amount of recoil, but it doesn't matter when you're just knocking out everything in front of you for the first few turns of the game.
Right. Yeah, that turn 1 was very interesting because we did see Kareem, max that Reuniclus to survive the max flare from the Charizard, which, it worked. He got the knockout on the Torkoal on the switch. His Reuniclus did survive that turn, but he did just lose his Trick Room option, and that might have been, a pretty big piece in his game plan against this team. He does have that Snorlax, which is very slow. He does have the Reuniclus, which can set Trick Room. He does have to deal with the Torkoal, so Torkoal is a very slow Pokemon, even slower than something like Reuniclus and Snorlax, so I guess he does have to worry about that. But if Dan's game plan is going to be to use this Charizard to its max potential, then Trick Room could be something that Kareem could think about as a switch up for game 2.
Yeah, I'd be very interested to see what changes Kareem makes. Setting up Trick Room would have been nice, but I think he made the right play. To try and deal with that Butterfree, important. But then at the same time, you've got to be concerned if you're Kareem and say, oh, well, if I set up Trick Room, he's just going to bring in Torkoal.
Right, and that is a big deal. If something like, we saw Snarl on Ragov's Arcanine in round 1, that could be something that Kareem is running as well, which could definitely help out with that Torkoal. But if you do set up the Trick Room, you have to give Torkoal a turn to launch an Eruption before you can Snarl it, because it is that much slower than the Arcanine. So it's something that Kareem definitely has to dance around.
Torkoal in Trick Room really asks questions. I don't think it's as threatening in some of the other kind of conditions, but as soon as Trick Room goes up, Torkoal is knocking, saying, do you have an answer to my huge eruptions? It's setting the sun. If, Kareem does have a way to stop the sun and change it up, which he definitely could. A Max Rockfall from something like Excadrill, maybe.
Right, true. Even Max Geyser from a Rotom, possibly.
Yeah, and then ADrive has that option to just reset the sun with Max Flare.
Right.
So
you can, that's a cool thing about using Torkoal with Charizard is that you can set up the sun, and then even if they have even a different Pokemon that can set weather like Tyranitar, you can just Max Flare again and then set the sun right back up. And so it's kind of a self-sustaining system there between the Torkoal and the Charizard.
What about this? You drop the Charizard, you bring the Torkoal immediately, and then you just reset it yourself with your own Max Flare based off Eruption.
Yeah, another option. Yeah, especially if Dan is using Trick Room or Rangaroo too. Now, if you do have Torkoal and Trick Room, maybe in the sand, maybe Kareem does set up something like a Max Rockfall with that Excadrill. You can just Max Flare. Yeah, you're very true.
I'm curious to see if Torkoal gets to do more than just set the weather this game.
Right.
Even though that was essential in the last game, I'd love to see it just do a little bit more.
Yeah.
I know that Eruption just does obscene amounts of damage.
It's crazy, yeah.
I've spoken to a couple of players who run it regularly, and the numbers they tell me that, did you know that max health Eruption of this Torkoal knocks out, and then they just rattle through a huge list of Pokemon. Surely not.
It can't.
I don't believe you. And then you play them, you're like, well, I believe you now.
Right. Yeah, Torkoal and Trick Room is definitely something you do not want to see. I know that combination of Pokemon has definitely won regionals on its own before, so very unsurprising to see it back in the game here.
Well, there is going to be some changes in Game 2 here. Definitely different leads. You actually get a little preview before they even get thrown out with that lovely new Spectator clan.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
There's going to be a change-up. Indeedee coming alongside the Reuniclus, and it's going to be a Rangaroo alongside that Butterfree. So quite honestly, both leads pretty conservative. No big hitters.
Right.
No real huge amounts of damage coming out unless you do decide to switch it up and Dynamax one of these Pokemon.
Right.
But definitely options to set up Trick Room.
Yeah, definitely two Pokemon that can set up Trick Room here in the Rangaroo and the Reuniclus. But yeah, it's kind of similarly as we were just talking about with the Sun with Charizard and Torkoal. Indeedee sets up the Psychic Terrain for Reuniclus, which would boost a lot of damage from it.
Sleep Powder, Butterfree starting it off. Indeedee not going to be given an option to do anything, just put right to sleep there. But it does look like the Indeedee is eating its Chesto Berry, very specific to sleep, as it psychics this Butterfree in return. Rangaroo is going to move first, set up Trick Room, but I think I know what's coming.
I believe so. It's got to be another Trick Room from this Reuniclus.
Yeah, it's going to be the classic, the double Trick Room in a turn, where one sets it up, and then if you use it again in the turn, it resets it immediately. So literally, we're in the exact same position as we were, speed-wise.
Right.
But the only exchange we've made is Indeedee's eaten its berry, and Butterfree has lost some of its health.
Right. So Chesto Berry coming in very handy there from Kareem's Indeedee. It took the Sleep Powder, and even though it did go to sleep, that Chesto Berry woke it right up. It got some good damage off with that Psychic. Broke a potential Focus Sash on the Butterfree. Possibly Kareem looking to set up Trick Room, but blocked by the Rangaroo's Trick Room as well. really interesting interaction there.
I feel like both of them want to set up Trick Room.
Right, yeah.
It's very odd there. They're both kind of, they want to let the other one do it, but also not.
Yeah.
So we'll see how they go with that. Runiculus is going to Psychic, though, so it looks like he's going to potentially let Dan just set it up.
Yep.
As Butterfree is knocked out, can't take those Psychics. Two of them will do enough to knock it out. Runiculus losing some of its HP, and there we go. We are going to see the Trick Room finally set up, and it's going to stick for this turn as well.
Yeah, so Trick Room does go up this time. Dan does lose the Butterfree in the process, but really not necessarily a bad thing because here comes that Torkoal. And now we were just talking about Torkoal and Trick Room being very threatening. And with a Sleeping Indeedee and a Reuniclus that has taken a little bit of Life Orb damage, might be a little bit difficult for Kareem to wiggle out of this one.
Yeah, I mean, there's some real nasty plays you can do with a Rangaroo too, to say, hey, do you want to Eruption more than once?
Yeah.
Because I like Eruptioning in a turn with full health. But you know what I like Eruptioning more?
Twice?
Eruptioning twice in a turn. It looks like Kareem is actually going to respond to this by setting up one of his Pokemon with the Dynamax. I think the Reuniclus...
We have to over 400 in total. So I'm probably able to take an Eruption from this Torkoal if it definitely needs to, and we are going to see one.
There's the first Eruption. Indeedee bought really, really low. The key thing here, though, is Max Mindstorm is just going to knock it out.
Yeah.
So we'll see exactly what the Oranguru wants to do. He's really working through his Pokemon quickly here. As Oranguru tries to instruct, he did go for the double play there, and it's not going to be enough. So I think that Dynamax Reuniclus really doing a lot better for Kareem this time around.
Right, so this time he Trick Roomed before, he got the Reuniclus into Trick Room rather. He took advantage of Dan's Trick Room before he had to Dynamax that Reuniclus. So now the Reuniclus is going to be one of the fastest things on the field, able to fire off these super powerful Max Mindstorms already in Psychic Terrain. We saw even in Game 1, it didn't need the Psychic Terrain to knock out the Torkoal, so just a little bit stronger this time, definitely doing the job. One interesting thing to note, though, is that we do see the Reuniclus taking Life Orb damage. One ability that Reuniclus often runs is Magic Guard, which would have blocked that damage. So since we are seeing Life Orb doing the damage to Reuniclus, it cannot be Magic Guard, so it's either going to be Overcoat or Regenerator, I believe, but most likely the Overcoat. Essentially because of the Butterfrees, I'd like to click Sleep Powder as much as they can. Yeah,
I think Overcoat's a great ability here, and I think Dan respecting that really wisely in the way he decides to kind of move around and not throwing Sleep Powders in that direction. A kind of tricky one for him, actually. He got his Trick Room up, he got his Torkoal in, but he didn't get to play it exactly how he wanted. He failed the Instruct on that previous turn. So now he's got a Charizard in, and you know what? Charizard, it doesn't want to be in Trick Room, so could be an option to try and reverse his own Trick Room.
Right. I wouldn't be surprised to see that for sure.
And just get himself in a good position. Charizard could be putting in a good option. If you can reverse the Trick Room and then get a knockout with Max Airstream, then maybe...
There's the Max Guard, yep.
You could... You're going to get the speed up on the Oranguru. You could then just start going with it that way and see what you can do. Indeed, he's staying asleep right now. Not going to be enough as Oranguru sets up Trick Room.
There we go.
So this game could swing real drastically. The Oranguru has been in control of the speed and the way that the turns are ordered for a long time now.
Yeah, so it might seem weird to Dynamax and immediately Max Guard, especially because you only do have those 3 turns. Now Charizard just has 2 turns left of Dynamax, but Max Guard does block the Max Mindstorm, and it would not have blocked Max Mindstorm with just Protect. So a smart Dynamax there. Now Dan has the speed advantage with this Charizard.
Yeah, but it's going to be Follow Me from Indeedee. It did wake up on that turn and is going to be the victim to the Max Airstream. The speed's going up for both Oranguru and, of course, this Dynamax Charizard. If you leave it around for too long, it could be in a position to just to keep going and see exactly how it goes. Charizard losing a whole lot of health. Oranguru launching foul plays in. Good amount of damage on Reuniclus, actually.
Yeah, good amount of damage, but not nearly enough. This Max Mindstorm will still do huge amounts to this Charizard, even taking it out in one hit, but just barely hanging on.
Yeah, and the big problem here, I think, for Dan is that Charizard right now is going to be losing so much health that he's literally on a clock to win the game.
Yeah.
I think he has maybe, I think he has to win this turn. I think the damage from Life Orb and Solar Power would knock him out.
Yeah, I don't believe Charizard can survive another turn with that Solar Power and Life Orb damage, so... You know, because Charizard is maxed, it doesn't have access to Heat Wave, which is a very strong spread attack that can do damage to both of Kareem's Pokemon. But all these max moves are going to be just single target instead.
Quick, bring Galarian Weezing and remove the Solar Power. It's the only way. No, I think this game, probably getting that Max Mindstorm down and dealing that damage is enough to put him in that position. Unless Oranguru can maybe foul play everyone?
I don't know if it has enough turns to do that.
We're putting it there as a question.
Right.
We'll see where we land with it.
Yeah, the Charizard's still going to be very fast this turn, but it can't knock out both Pokemon like we were saying. So
no, I mean, not without losing all its health.
Right, yeah. Now, possibly something like a Max Airstream into Arcanine. I believe we saw it, knock out Arcanine in one hit last game. And now that Reuniclus is no longer Dynamax, the foul play will be doing a little bit more damage. But even so, if it's not enough to knock it out, that will certainly be the game in Kareem's favor.
Well, let's find out. I think both trainers ready to lock in their moves as soon as possible. Charizard's Max Airstream heading towards Arcanine once again. We saw it in Game 1. We're going to see it in Game 2. It is gone. Hey, he's boosting this Oranguru. He's making sure this Oranguru gets to foul play first. Charizard's speed going up there. Not going to be relevant for too much longer. Charizard losing some health. Clinging on. Oranguru's foul play towards this Reuniclus. Oh, not enough. That's going to be a little bit tricky as Psychic just secures the knockout on Charizard. Even if Solar Power wasn't going to get there, the Psychic definitely will.
Right. Yeah, foul play, even though it is super effective into that Reuniclus, foul play actually uses the attack stat of the target instead of the user.
Interestingly, though, it does knock itself out to its own life form.
True, yeah.
So we have a Oranguru against a mystery Pokemon. It's Snorlax.
This actually could be interesting. We did see Belly Drum revealed from Snorlax in Game 1 on Kareem Snorlax. And if it does choose to Belly Drum, foul play will be doing a hefty amount of damage because it does use that target's attack stat. So we will likely be seeing the Snorlax not opting for that Belly Drum, just trying to knock out the Oranguru before it can foul play this.
Yeah, this is going to be slow, boys. These are not huge hits. The Facade actually doing a decent amount.
Right.
But I think Kareem's just in the driving seat. Just throw out a few Facades here.
Right.
Don't Belly Drum, I think is the key takeaway here. Do not under any circumstance do that. And go from there. Snorlax, you've also got to get through the berry as well, which I'm just not going to do.
Right. Even if this Oranguru has a berry of its own, Snorlax will be recovering. And if the Snorlax does carry Recycle, this essentially is a method of recovering that berry and getting a little bit more health every turn it uses that Recycle. So it looks like Snorlax will be able to power through this Oranguru and carry Kareem into a third game.
Yeah, well, we do know that there's no, getting a little bit of information on the item on Oranguru there. I'm not seeing any berries activating right now.
Yep.
So that's good information. That's where you play the game out. Snorlax finally bought below half and immediately going back above half with the use of that berry.
Yeah, the berry coming in handy here. Snorlax really doesn't fear anything from this Oranguru. We do see the Oranguru get brought below 25%, so it's not carrying in a berry like Snorlax. There's no Aglav berries, no Iapapa berries, no self-confusing berries this time around. Yeah,
Kareem showing how to actually pick the berry that you put on your Pokemon correctly, making sure that he's using the right berry for the nature of his Snorlax. The Guav not confusing him and causing any problems as Kareem does wrap up Game 2. A nice kind of slow and steady end to that game.
Right.
And we're going to be going to Game 3 here.
Yeah, so Kareem, opting to use Trick Room this time around, but instead of setting it up himself like he tried to on turn 1, he correctly identified that Dan would try to set up his own Trick Room and took advantage of that with that Reuniclus. So as soon as Trick Room went up, he decided to Dynamax that Reuniclus, which got much more mileage. He got much more mileage out of it this time than he did in Game 1 when he just did it defensively to survive that Max Flare.
I think Dan may just have to look at kind of going back to what happened in Game 1 and just try and work things through on there. Now he's seen the Indeedee and the Reuniclus paired together, seen how strong they can be. Maybe that Butterfree is going to kind of be considered to be dropped.
Yeah, knowing that the Indeedee has that Chesto Berry now, knowing that Reuniclus is very likely Overcoat, which will ignore Sleep Powder, and also Rage Powder. The Butterfree might not be the best play for Dan, but it actually, it's still pretty threatening, especially if Kareem doesn't lead something like Indeedee Reuniclus, then he's definitely threatening some Sleep Powders. But we also saw the Safeguard on Arcanine, so that's up to 3 things that can prevent Butterfree from effectively Sleep Powdering on Kareem's team.
Yeah, I really don't think that that's going to be the finest of choices. It's so difficult to use the Butterfree effectively, and I'll be curious to see if he drops it. Outside of the Sleep Powder, we've really not seen too much of it. Yes, it can. We all know it can Rage Powder. We know it can and do that, but it's not like he had a problem setting up Trick Room. It's just he had a problem taking advantage of it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind seeing the Duraludon put back in, actually.
Yeah, I could definitely see that, especially knowing that Kareem is bringing those 2 Psychic types. Duraludon does resist those Psychic type attacks thanks to its Steel typing. So it could be a strong defensive option for Dan here in Game 3.
We'll see what changes he makes, if any. The Charizard is pretty much a staple of what he's doing with it. There's no messing around on that one.
No, there's no denying that Charizard is very strong here. We saw it even make a huge dent in kind of an unfavorable scenario at the end of Game 2 there. So, if Dan is able to more facilitate that Charizard in this third game, it could see something more similar to Game 1 where the Charizard just kind of ran through the game.
It's been so powerful and so honestly very fun to see Charizard coming back. Dynamax Charizard. There is a Gigantamax form available, which he's not decided to go for.
Yeah.
This is just your straight up Dynamax, but it still gets all the benefits. It doesn't get the move,
right?
But it still using solar power as well.
Yeah, I believe if you could use solar power with the Gigantamax Charizard, that would likely be what we are seeing from a lot of players. Even though you do lose that max flare, the G-Max move on Charizard is crazy strong too. But unfortunately, we just are limited to the Blaze ability on Gigantamax Charizard, so we just do see the regular Dynamax Charizard for now.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see actually what the difference is in things you can knock out, as we were talking about with the Torque Hole. Things you can knock out with solar power and without.
True.
I'd be curious to see what kind of makes the cut and what moves around.
Right, because even without solar power, you still get the sun boost on the fire type attack. So you guess you lose the boost from something like Max Airstream, but otherwise, you still have these very strong fire type moves.
Yep. Well, it's going to be the same lead as game number 1 for Dan and game number 2 for Kareem. So both players actually bringing the lead that won them that game, and I think that's a smart decision.
Right, so the Butterfree does make a return, but just like in Game 1, we saw the Butterfree immediately switch out into the Torkoal. This time around, though, Kareem does have the Indeedee to protect the Reuniclus from the Max Flare on this first turn. So if Kareem does opt to do something in, so a lot of options here from both of these players. Yeah,
this could be a really decisive turn. I don't want to say the games can be over after such a simple switch, but you can carve out a huge advantage.
Absolutely.
And go from there. Honestly, I'm pretty happy to see Reuniclus back. Just that nice little zoom in we got there. I'm looking at it and thinking, you know what? This is a cool Pokemon.
I love it. It's one of my favorites, yeah.
I'm excited to see it back and doing what it does best. I mean, causing so many problems.
Right.
You wouldn't think when you look at his team that that's what would be Dynamaxing, but it seems to be working. As an immediate switch from Dan, removes the Charizard and places the Torkoal in. Yeah. Maybe he's trying to do the same thing he did before, with the take the Max Mindstorm and get right back out.
Right, very possible. If the Reuniclus does Dynamax here, that could be what's going on. But we actually just see a Rage Powder instead, and no Dynamax from either player.
Yep, indeed he's going to follow me, like you said, probably looking to get that Trick Room up. And you know what's cool about this switch for Dan is that Eruption doesn't care about that at all. So this could get real nasty in a turn or two. Torkoal is in a premium position right now. It's sat in the Trick Room, doing exactly what it wants.
Yeah, it's in a pretty good position, but it does still have to worry about that Reuniclus, because we did see in Game 2, the Reuniclus did Dynamax and take the Eruption and, still have a pretty good chunk of health left. So, if Reuniclus does Dynamax here, if it is that Overcoat ability, it doesn't have to worry about Butterfree clicking Rage Powder, and it will be able to, take out this Torkoal with a Max Mindstorm if that is the option it goes for here.
We'll see exactly what's going on with it, moving through. And then see exactly how this is played out. You're right, though. We do need to make sure that we get a Dynamax down. That's going to be real big for something like the Reuniclus. It's been doing it every single game and putting itself in such a great position.
Yeah, that's what it does here, too. So the Trick Room is going to be really important for this Reuniclus. It's going to be the second fastest thing in the field after this Torkoal. And then after that, it will be able to fire off some Max Mindstorms after it has to deal with this Eruption.
Yeah, well, there's the Butterfree, just trying to cause some issues with the Rage Powder. Torkoal firing out the Eruption. That's going to be good damage. Not enough for a knockout, and not enough to bring them below half. We do get to see that interaction with Overcoat. And not too concerned at all about that Rage Powder. So that's caused a bit of a problem. Reuniclus taking some damage from the Life Orb, and Indeedee following back with a Psychic here. We did see before it wasn't enough to knock out Butterfree, but a critical hit brings it really, really low.
Yeah, so unfortunate for Dan there, possibly overlooking that interaction with Overcoat. Overcoat does allow you to ignore Rage Powder, so as the Reuniclus was able to Max Mindstorm that Torkoal, survive that Eruption very comfortably. It looks like even if it wasn't Dynamaxed, it would not have been knocked out by it. But now we have this Reuniclus in Trick Room, in the Psychic Train, able to fire some more very strong Max Mindstorms, possibly some other coverage moves that might allow it to hit this Duraludon a little bit stronger too.
Yeah, Duraludon's another Pokemon that really likes Trick Room, I'd say. So that's a nice change. We did see the Oranguru in game number 2, and that makes up real nice. Reuniclus revealing Max Knuckle, though. Duraludon not appreciating that, but holding on, most importantly.
Yeah, Duraludon benefiting from the lower power of those fighting type max moves there, just barely hanging on. Now, the attack boost is not going to matter much for the Reuniclus or the Indeedee, but the Indeedee is able to follow up with a Psychic and knock out this Butterfree.
Yep, Butterfree's going to fall, and it's going to be all down to Charizard and Duraludon for Dan right here. Looks like Duraludon's going to get it started this time with a Flash Cannon. Pick up the knockout on Indeedee. No more concerns about Follow Me there. But realistically, this Reuniclus is still thriving in the Trick Room. Yeah,
I believe it does still have one more turn of Dynamax, so it'll be able to fire off one more Max Mindstorm, possibly another Max Knuckle if it wants to boost its partner's attack. But a Mindstorm will certainly be able to take out this Duraludon, even if it, does have the Protect, because those Max moves do a little bit of damage through Protect. But the Snorlax does come in here, which will love this Trick Room setup as well.
Yeah, speaking of Pokemon that enjoy Trick Room, Kareem showing us the Snorlax actually playing in Trick Room this time for the first time in the whole set.
Yeah.
The previous 2 games it's been playing out at Trick Room. And right now, down to your last 2 and your Duraludon that low, it's not looking good. But Kareem playing this game so well.
Very well. He got that Trick Room up immediately when he needed it, and then took advantage of that Overcoat ability, taking some huge knockouts on that Torkoal, and then there's so much damage in the Duraludon.
Yep, well, the time is now to Dynamax. You've got to be staying in the game, and it looks to be that Charizard once again, just making sure it can do as much damage as it can. The Sunlight is on a clock as well.
Right.
And that's going to push it a little bit to really do a lot. That said, if by some way this Charizard can see its way through the back end of this game and get out the Trick Room, that could be really nasty. Snorlax, though, starting out with a Darkest Lariat, the best animation in the game.
Easily. That is such a good animation.
It's so silly, but it looks so good, and that does mean it's now 3v1. Max Mindstorm going down on this Charizard, and it's gone. That's it. A critical hit will seal this game for Kareem, and round number